Paul Barnet is the founder at Reconnect Breathwork that specialises in coaching and training breathwork, meditation, and functional fitness. He's passionate about helping men release stress and limiting beliefs from the body to optimise their health and well-being on a physical, mental, and spiritual level. He has experienced the power of these internal tools on his own journey to overcome anxiety, panic attacks, and overwhelm. Paul credits the simple yet profound practices we discussed today as the reason for him still being here, living a life of purpose and sustaining a loving family with his wife of over 20 years. So I had some amazing experiences through your breathwork journeys, Paul, and I pretty much have got you on this podcast just to find out what was actually going on, what my body was doing to elicit such a profound and powerful experience.
Yeah, well, lots of different things could have been happening. What can you explain a bit about what your experience was?
I can share a little bit. So basically, a girlfriend asked me to come on a Sunday. I thought it's like a ladies' lunch, bit of champagne, bit of yoga, bit of relaxation, bit of charity. I thought I was just doing my bits, and we laid down after the yoga, and you started to take us through these breathwork techniques. And you're also doing some sound healing. My eyes were closed, so I wasn't sure what was going on. But myself and my girlfriend, there were a lot of women in the room, had a very similar experience. We basically felt like we're having an out-of-body experience. And we were aware of each other's experiences as well. And I was having visions. I was getting insights. I was getting clarity. And I did about 4 or 5 of these sessions throughout last year with you. And what was really interesting for me, each time I went, it was like a movie. It was a story. And it was related to my relationship with my partner. And what I got from it is that I was actually being exposed to our past lives together. Each time it was like a new bit of information would be released to me. And, you know, we were going through a little bit of difficulty at the time. We had some big stresses going on, and it really helped me to understand our relationship, our connection, why we were together, and why we also, I guess, had the conflicts that we did or had the misunderstandings, and our purpose to heal it, which was really profound for me, because the premise to my relationship coaching with men is that couples come together to actually heal each other's wounds and to become whole. And you do that through love. And it's not this sort of like porno Disney effect that we're brought up with. But for me, you know, there's 8 billion people in this world. So sometimes we get to this point in a relationship with someone where we wonder, you know, that this is getting difficult, right? And sometimes the answer to leave is to leave. But through these breathwork sessions, it really took me deeper, and it really allowed me to grow. And I think, you know, I've shared this story with a few people, and it's very similar to an experience you might have on, say, MDMA or some of these healing type substances that are slowly starting to become legal and used for medicine. But the journey that you took us through was purely through our own breath. Yeah,
and it's quite interesting you say that in relation to past lives, because my partner and myself, like when we've been together over 20 years now, and through our journey of kind of growing together, and because it's almost half of our lives, and you go through a lot, but same sort of experience of, like, I used to go through some meditations and I'd have these experiences where I'd remember the lives that we've had in these different timelines, and it was a similar theme in each of them. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. This was before I was doing breathwork.
This is even before, right?
Yeah. This
through some other modalities or tools?
It was a combination of, we used to do energy work. So working with your energy centers, chakras, and then meditation more directly. And then we'd go on specific journeys through the meditations, like guided meditations in our group. And sometimes it'd just be like just tuning in and finding out what's going on in life. And then, same sort of experience as you. It was like your relationship comes up within those experiences. And it was quite interesting because my wife wasn't that deep into, I guess, journeying inside and doing meditations. And then I was telling her about these past lives. She really connected to it as well.
She resonated.
Yeah.
And that was the same with my partner. And I know you mentioned that your wife isn't really into these tools. She sort of more the grounding, or she's into netball.
She keeps me grounded. Yeah.
And my partner's the same. Like
Yeah.
I cannot drag him to a meditation or really anything, you know. I can't be the one to show my partner the way. So when I shared this with him, it sounded so crazy.
Yeah.
But he actually resonated with it, right? So there's this feeling of truth with what you get, even though, you know, sometimes you wonder, like, is my imagination creating this? But it happened over a few sessions with very specific messages, and almost like, this is part 1 of the movie, this is part 2. So yeah, I was just wondering, what does breathwork actually do to your body for you to have these visions or insights, or even just to feel so much better afterwards?
Yeah, well, it's allowing your body to really go on a deeper level of relaxation. So it takes you into a dream state, or possibly, you know, it depends on the level that you do in the breath. Like there's many different variables that you can use it for. What we do specific within the journeys is going on a journey specific. So I take you through different tempos and techniques of the breath to shift different parts throughout your body. On a physical level, we're transforming your nerves. Your nerves.
Your
nervous system. That's the word.
Yeah.
Trying to get through. So within our nervous system, it has different levels. So there's either a stress state or there's a relaxed state as well. So within that space, it gives us an opportunity to shift stored energy.
Right.
If we've got stress and trauma within our body, which our body holds on to, unless we release it through some form of movement, some form of stress relief. You watch children, you know, toddlers and stuff, they do it quite well. Like they'll have a tantrum, they'll laugh, they'll cry, they'll scream, they'll throw things, and then they'll come back and say, I love everything.
They fulfill the trauma cycle. And so do animals on the Discovery Channel. If you watch them, you know, like an antelope getting hunted by a lion, if they sort of play dead, you know, the shutdown mode, the lion goes away, they shake their whole body, and then they walk around like nothing's happened. They're not in trauma or fear of the lion anymore.
Yeah.
So what are you saying is that when we do this type of breath work, are we releasing those unfulfilled traumas that we've stored in the body or the nervous system?
It starts to, there is specific things that take you on that journey. And sometimes your body knows what it needs to release.
Right.
And this is why the animals are just primal instincts. And what we're doing is tapping into our primal instincts for our body. So our brains and our bodies haven't changed over 240 million years or so.
No.
Yet we think we're smarter and more clever, but deep down the primal instinct is survival. You know, we're stressed, we're this, we're that. And so these days we don't have a lot of activity to release the stress. And so that's why there's a lot of ill health and stress related. Like if you go to talk to a doctor, they'll say 80 to 90% of their patients is a stress related illness.
Yes.
Which is terrible.
And I think it's great that doctors are actually saying that now, but I don't think they're really connecting that link that illnesses are primarily from emotions, and emotions, not to say negative emotions, but emotions that we suppress in the body. And that's sort of like the leading edge science, or I believe where it's going to go in the next 5-10 years, is really through emotions. And I think breath work is such a big part of it. So then what is happening, you know, because a lot of people are doing breath work just to feel relaxed, they feel good afterwards, but what is happening when you are getting those visions or those out of body experiences? What's happening in the body to produce that?
So within your, I guess, the central nervous system, what we're doing throughout the journey is heightening a bit of like positive stress, or putting your body into a little bit of stress, which is a natural form of life. And then we're going into a parasympathetic nervous system, which will drop you into a relaxed state as well. And that's where you go into your dream state. So when you're in a dream state, your brain goes into a theta wave, which allows you, it's just a vibration, tone that sends your body into restoring, recovering, and resting. That's why we sleep. Or when you need to recover, if you're sick, you'll tend to want to sleep more as well. What's happening there in that state, it starts to release different chemicals in the brain. And so within these chemicals, there's the serotonin, melatonin, and dopamines that sort of all start to combine together to get you into that state. Now, when they do that as well, there's another chemical called DMT, which is called...
That's the fun chemical.
The fun chemical, yeah. So some of, being produced into, forms of party drugs and things like that. But this is a natural form that you can create yourself.
Right.
It is in your brain.
So we can
necessary.
create that chemical in the brain, but it's also created in a lab artificially. Is that
yes,
the difference?
That's right. So,
yeah.
And what the breath does to help, I guess, unlock that is get you into that dream state. And so some people call it the spirit molecule. Some people call it just like you're out of body, and you sometimes you'll see colors. But on a physical level, the spirit molecule is just allowing you to tune into yourself. So when you're saying you're having the stories continue on from what you've been seeing from one journey to the next, it is just your body's just unfolding the messages that are always there, but we're so busy doing life and on tech and all that sort of stuff that we don't often hear the messages. We don't hear the intuitive side of the journey of life, unless we're asleep. And so the breath is allowing you to drop out of that state physically. Not that you go unconscious in the breath work at all. Like, you're completely aware, but you're just having this almost to a degree where you feel like you have an out-of-body experience.
Yes.
Because your body's so relaxed and your mind's just not switched on about anything. Because what the breath does, and this is directly how I work with people directly with stress and anxiety, is it gets you present.
Yes.
Instead of being busy thinking about the past or worrying about the future, it gets you into the most present state you can be in. Because when we're doing the breath specific, all you're focusing on is the breath. In, out, the feeling, the sound, and what that tends to do is allow the rest of your body just to shut down and relax into a really comfortable space. And so doing this at a certain level allows the journey to unfold. Like, you can do, say if you're having a stressful moment, say you're at the office or you're in the car, you can do 5-10 breaths and calm your nervous system down and get you to that relaxed state without having to go into a dream state. But the longer journeys will take you there.
To different levels.
Yeah. And some people have different experiences. So some people might not feel comfortable, go, oh, wow, I'm starting to feel out of body, and they'll kind of jolt to get themselves back into their body or to feel like I'm still here. And a lot of people do often comment about saying, oh, I didn't even realize I was still breathing, or how did I stop breathing? And it's like, because you go into such a relaxed state, your body goes into homeostasis and starts healing, starts recovering, and drops your breathing down into a really, really gentle pace where it's so soft. Like when you're asleep, if you're having a quality sleep, you'll go into that space and you'll just completely just let go. And within that space is when maybe stored energy comes up. Experiences I've had for myself has been through my journey of working through my anxiety, is my body will shake, my legs will shake, my hands will clench up. And through my coaches teaching me is allowing me to understand it's just energy coming out.
Right.
It's
releasing
energy.
Yeah.
So like you're saying, like the animals do it, they have a shake. Kids just, run and, do lots of interesting things, like my two little ones. It's great to watch, actually, to see how children react very specifically in every moment. And you can see the patterns just varied into an adult, even teenagers, where they start to suppress all those sorts of things. And this is where we're at these days with society. Like, we've had a lot of pressure put on us the last few years. And so people are at a boiling point. They've got enough pressure with life by itself. And then you add, a global pressure.
Yeah, the
everyone
pandemic and sort of being locked in with your thoughts and emotions. And, as you were just sharing that, how once we are out of our mind and our body just relaxes, then we get all these insights, then things start to heal. And I remember I was listening to Bruce Lipton, who's really big in this field of, bringing science together, like very leading edge science. He said something like, when we're thinking, when our mind is busy and active, we're actually not conscious. All of our programs are running because we're not actually present, because we're not our thoughts. We're actually behind the thoughts. So it's very different to what society tells us. Society is always telling us to, do things, to have our mind on things, to be aware of the danger. So I think especially for men, it's really hard for a lot of men to stop, pause, and be with what's going on, particularly with their emotions.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the biggest part, especially if don't have to be a parent, but you still have that primal instinct as a male of survival and protection. You want to protect your family no matter what. And so any instance, you're always thinking about, okay, what do I need to do to, keep my family safe? Like, simply walking down the street with my little ones, you always got your peripheral vision of cars, of people, of any dangers that might be around. And so you're constantly in that, I guess, fight or flight mode. You're ready to prepare to survive and protect your little ones. The puma instincts of the dads, you see them in little short snippets on YouTube where they're catching their kids with they're rolling off the chair 5 meters away and the dad gets them somehow. So they have this Superman reflex.
And that's the survival instinct, and that's our fight or flight nervous system. So it can be really helpful when our life is in danger. But if we're living in the modern world, our life mostly isn't in danger, but that system is still activated. It's in default. And I think from working with men in these modalities and coaching men on their mindset and their relationship, I guess what I've realized is, even though women have suffered a lot in society throughout history, men cause a lot of violence, injustice, and all these things, I actually feel like, in a way, men have suffered more, and it is actually more difficult for men because men's emotions have been suppressed so much. So the only way that they have been able to release them in the past is to release that violently on someone or a nation or an organization, right? And now what's happening in Australia, that's not as acceptable. So that we have a lot of suicide.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah. And that's a huge part. Like I've had a few mates commit suicide.
Yeah.
Just thinking that, they don't have an answer, they don't have anyone to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
And, from watching that and going through that experience myself and feeling it, it's like, that bloody hurts. Watching your mates go through that, and you don't want anyone, if they're friends or not. So I guess,
and
everything
at the time when you were going through those emotions, because you've found all these tools because of something you've been going through, and they've helped you. So what was going on for you, and what was your journey to have an emotional outlet, to discover these tools instead of, maybe having, not really being here today on this podcast, let alone being with your beautiful wife and family for over 20 years?
Yeah. And that's big part of the journey, because it's not just a one event.
Yeah.
Because life has its challenges over and over, and I guess it's becoming part of that journey and recognizing that the challenges are part of the journey rather than trying to run away from them. And this goes hand in hand with the emotions. The emotions come up, we're generally told, oh, quick, medicate yourself, do this, have a pill, have a drink, go and exercise until you pass out. All these different things, because we're trying to do a physical shift, but it's not just the physical. And this is the biggest thing, is like we can do all the mind work and we can get a bit of physical work in there, but the breath part of it, and this has been through my experience, it has helped me to shift out of the stress state, the anxious state where you're just confused and frustrated. Because anytime I'd have like an anxiety attack or panic moment, I would get really frustrated and angry. And that's not a great thing when you're about to jump on stage and go and help people and teach them about stress. Because, my anxieties came from social anxiety when I was a teenager. So going up and not performing, but, presenting in front of people was biggest fear in the world.
So how did you overcome that from, not wanting
Still
to
working
be
on it.
Yeah, wow. And that's amazing.
Yeah, it's an ongoing process. I still get anxious,
Yeah. And I think it's okay to get anxious, because anxiety is really similar
necessary.
Physiologically to excitement, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not getting that, you might be a little bit slack on stage. But what was actually, the first point? Was it either an internal shift? Did someone recommend meditation to you? Was it a book you read where you realized, okay, there is a outlet, or is there a way forward from these feelings and thoughts that are overwhelming me?
Yeah, well, I guess I was quite lucky in that respect, because my family through my grandmother, my uncles, my dad, and my mum. Like they all had their hand in the natural sort of therapies, and my mum was always looking through herbal medicines and stuff like that to help us as we're growing up. My dad did meditation and read, Louise Hay's books and things like that. So I'd see them laying around. So it's like, like the movie Limitless. You see the book out of the corner of your eye and you pick up the information. It just unfolds. And my uncles were meditation teacher and hypnotherapist, NLP practitioner. So they are all in that form. But which I guess was surrounding influences. But I remember, I think it was around 7 or 8, and I had a cold. My grandmother was looking after me, putting me to bed, and this has been like this. The seed was planted. She's like, just rest your body. You can heal yourself while you sleep. Not that I knew anything about it at the time, but that seed grew over the years. And so
especially if it was at 7 years old, because that's when our subconscious mind, it's learning its program. So she implanted a very helpful program,
powerful one. So I've been working with things like that with my kids just to help them as well. But from there, I guess I was having panic attacks when I was about to go to parties, like in high school. And I couldn't even go and buy like a t-shirt over the shop counter because I'd get too anxious.
And was there a reason, like did you experience bullying, or did you have a negative experience, or was it just, do you think that you were actually quite psychic to other people's thoughts and emotions? What do you think was actually going on for you that created that fight or flight response when you're going to be around a lot of people?
I was quite emotional. As a child, I'm very aware of other people's emotions. So I think it was that. There wasn't any bullying. Like there's normal mucking around sort of thing, but nothing, major on that level. But it was, to be honest, like it was just, I didn't even know what it was. It was just like, I just can't go and do that. I can't go and talk to that person. I can't go to this party without feeling his feelings. And I'd have to, at an unconscious level. I remember it was like 17, about to go to a party and having to lay on my bed for an hour before I went out. And I was just breathing. I was like, I'd started some meditation back then, but I was like, like the deep, heavy breathing, which can put you into a deeper state of anxiety, but somehow it worked at the time. Now that I know different techniques for it.
So it happened spontaneously. And is that how you were able to go to that party or go on stage or overcome those very heavy feelings? Was it through meditation?
Part of that, And hypnotherapy was a big one. Because when I was studied the meditation and energy healing work, through that same course I learned hypnotherapy. And so I was just like, wow, you can do all this stuff with your brain and your mind. And I think that's where that key triggered the seed of what my grandma mentioned about you can heal yourself while you sleep. You can heal yourself with your mind. And so I went into this experience of hypnotherapy, and they were doing an open day, and it's like, wow, we can do what? I want to know more. And I was just like, from there, just the journey unfolded into hypnotherapy, deeper mindful sort of work, NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming, working with your mind programming. So as you're saying before, when you're in a stress state, you just go into an automated process. So the automated process is just a belief or a pattern that you've repeated over time. And then as soon as stress hits, your body will just go into that survival mode. Okay, this is how we deal with that situation.
Yes. And I think for a lot of people, what they realize, it comes up in their intimate relationship, right? When pressure is on and we're most vulnerable, and there's danger, that nervous system rings the alarm of danger when our partner's hurt us, or we think something could have happened, or we've interpreted something differently. We tend to, until we're aware, we tend to go into that program of how we survive with danger before the age of 7. Right? And a lot of people are still operating in that way within their relationship. So it's not two adults having a relationship. It's two, infants or two children when the pressure or the stress comes on.
100%. A lot of people I've worked with over the years, when we've done some regression work, has been between the ages of 2 to 5, 2 to 7, where the actual emotional, the behavior pattern is kind of dialed in. And so we're all running around as children, little toddlers, and just that's why we have tantrums, in an adult form.
Yeah.
And so this is where the next level where we're working with the breath work is incorporating that NLP work with the breath work. So then we're working with releasing the emotions because the body will naturally do it. And sometimes some guidance within that space when we're doing it on a therapeutic level is where we can really delve into. It's not just like, oh, let's go through the problem and work through it. It's like, let's release the emotion, get our lessons from there, and then we can evolve from there.
And ground it into daily life. Is that what you're
100%.
doing? Yeah.
It has to be, because if it's just a thing you do once a week, once a month, you're not going to get results, especially in relationships. You're going to get triggered a lot because your partner's there to push a lot of buttons.
Yeah.
If you know it or not, like, if you're in a deep relationship, like I've been in one for a long time now, over 20 years. And
you were with your wife from the age of 14?
14 we first met, Yeah. So we've been married 18 and been together for over 20. I don't know, a long time. Long time.
Longer than probably, you've known her longer than you didn't know her. So
yeah, exactly. So we've grown up together. So, you go through a lot and you learn a lot. And there's a lot of triggers. But what I've found is me going through, I guess, the relationship journey is about, and especially because I'm doing the work, is recognizing the triggers rather than being reactive. It's working on, okay, well, this happens then, and this has happened again and again and again when those triggers happen. What do I do now? How do I do that? How do I work with this emotion? Because I don't want to feel angry or frustrated or, even sometimes you feel like your old patterns of being, oh no, I'm not good enough, whatever, that comes up. So it's like being able to try and work with that rather than run from it.
And that's a really important point, because I think for most men, what starts to deteriorate the relationship is avoidance, right? It can be different forms of avoidance, because essentially that's how men deal with stress. They suppress it, because when they needed to go on the battlefield or kill that wild animal, they couldn't have fear. They needed to go and do the job to survive. So avoidance is like the primal survival technique for men.
Yeah.
Whereas for women, and it can sort of flip around a little bit in our society when people wear different hats, but for women or for the feminine, it's to connect. So that's how we release stress. And so it's completely opposite, right?
100%, yeah.
So it's impossible for a male-female intimate monogamous relationship not to trigger you, right?
Yeah. And like, I've done years of work and still working, like it's a never-ending sort of cycle because you're constantly learning.
Yeah. But that's like with everything, right? So if a doctor stops learning or educating themselves, they're going to be behind, right? They're going to be doing a disservice to their patients. Same as going to the gym. If you stop working on it, well, you might have a bit of muscle memory, but everything in life is constantly changing and we need to keep going with it. Otherwise, we're going backwards.
Yeah, 100%. And that's, I think, where, in this whole feminine power and then now the masculine is like trying to find their power because they feel like they're just this battle between the genders is now starting to rebalance itself. Like we've had the big empowerment of the used to be the guys, and then the females are drummed up, and now the guys are feeling disempowered, and this is where a lot of the emotions coming up. And a lot of guys that I talk to and work with is not knowing our place in society anymore, not feeling like you're a protector or a survivor of all the things to help your family and all the rest of it. So and this is where the suicide is. It's like, well, what am I doing here? I can't help my family. My wife's doing all the work. Yeah. And you feel like I'm demasculated.
The narrative is, sort of very much against masculinity, right? And it's sort of really, this is the disruption phase, right? This is where we need to shift and change so that we can step into the next level of our evolution. Otherwise, we're not going to survive as a species because we're not going to mate any longer, right? So, this is a time I feel where men really need to step into that place of regulating their nervous system, not going into avoidance, and learning about themselves and connecting with themselves so that they can lead in their relationship, they can lead in the world and maintain that loving connection, because that's what we need in the world to for us not to go extinct, basically.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like perfect kind of lead into, like, I was having a journey, and it was like breath work involved, like as the stories unfold, and I was releasing, like something came up for me where I needed to let go, and I was like, all I remember is just like kind of feeling like I don't want to hold on anymore. I don't want to hold on to having to know everything or have to be everything or to be everything for everyone. And it was like that holding on was such a powerful pressure of trying to be nice to everyone as well.
Yeah.
Because masculine word has this stigma around it being, if you're masculine, you're angry, you're rush, you're, all this sort of stuff. But then throughout that journey, when I really tuned into what masculine was and got shown through myself, it's like owning your power. It's got nothing to do with overpowering anyone else. It's like stepping into you on the deepest level and understanding how much passion you have to share, to offer. You can be emotional on every level. It's all perfect. And being able to step into that space without going, oh, I'm coming to overpower anyone or anything. There's no personality struggles or energy battles I'm going to win by competition. And starting to eliminate that, separation, which society has created such a gap between everything. There's always a winner, a loser, a male, a female, country.
When we're separated, we're not powerful, right? When we're continuously battling between each other, there's not much space and time to grow. So really, if humans realize how powerful they are, particularly, I recommend anyone to try breathwork and to try it with you, because it's freaking amazing. Great. Even if you've never done anything before, if you don't believe in anything, just have this experience and just notice what your body does, because you start to realize we are powerful beings, and we can have powerful connections with others, and we actually produce energy. We are an energy body. Our heart generates energy and it shifts things. So I think that these modalities, these tools, are absolutely, necessary, amazing for every single person. So I'm going to ask you a few more questions just to end our conversation. I'm going to ask you 3 questions. The first one is, you've learned a lot of modalities, you have a lot of insights and a lot of wisdom, but I'm wondering, what did you learn from your wife? Because I always feel that our partners, especially in long-term relationships, they're really our biggest teachers.
Good question. Lots of learnings. So I think a big one is, on many levels, it's been, what's the word? Proactive. Because when I was going through my journey, anxiety used to put me in a corner, and I'll just be, for the lack of a better word, procrastination. We hold back, but it's without using that word, it was fear of actually going and doing stuff for myself and taking charge of life. And she was always like, all right, I'm doing it, and get in there. So she was grounded, she was focused, and nothing would distract her. I was like, every little shiny ball would, take my attention. And then she helped me to kind of recognize that. And that used to bug the shit out of me. And it's like, oh, she's always just getting stuff done. Even just because we were focused and the kids are running around the back and doing the work.
Masculine energy. That's getting stuff done is masculine energy, right?
Yeah.
And you've probably balanced her more on her feminine.
Trying to bring the peace into the
bringing the peace.
Just by being, trying to be the pleaser, I suppose. So that was a big one. It's an ongoing, because I've, when you ask the question, I have memories of when we were teenagers, and people asking me questions about hypnotherapy back then. That was 20 plus years ago, and everyone was, oh, don't turn me into a chicken. It was the stage show. There was a big stigma around it back then when I first started. Now it's more mainstream and open to, but I can't think of the word, but it's just about standing up for yourself and being proactive in and believing in yourself. So she's really helped me to be grounded in that level and to believe in who I am.
Yeah. And develop that self-trust.
Yeah, 100%. So, which is great.
That's so important for a man, because a man can be really confident or macho on the outside, but if they don't have self-trust, they're still kind of just being led and swayed around by the world, and that's when you can make really bad decisions. So I think that's an incredibly valuable life lesson.
Yeah, it's huge.
And And the second question is, obviously you've had this amazing experience to be married for 20 years and to have this life partner. What advice would you give to single men, maybe who've been bachelors for a long time, or kind of disgruntled with women, or disheartened or hurt? What advice would you give them about relationships and maybe the importance of having this connection in your life?
Well, firstly, this is a big one that's I've learned over the last, say, 10 or so years, is being look at yourself first. Because we're so often looking outwards for recommendations or the cheer squad or the reward, I guess we've been taught. Or the storybooks, always looking for the fairy princess.
Yeah.
Yet if you start and you're not feeling, in your space as a confident person, or not, don't even have to be confident. Confident is just a word to use, that knowing yourself.
Yes.
If you don't know yourself, then how do you expect your partner to know you and to be able to share with you? And this is where the frustrations happen through, I guess, relationships, because we expect them to know us from the inside. But if we don't know ourselves, then how is that going to work? And that's when the triggers happen, so you can try and learn. So the more triggers you got in your relationships, it's just because you're not taping in and learning from yourself. And what that is, it's just a reflection. So I think, going in as a bachelor, look at how you want to live your life. What sort of, it's not about needing a person. It's about just sharing a community with a person, because you eventually, all going well, you build a family together. And so then your gene pool goes on from there. So generations will flow on. And I've heard a few people kind of take this experience before they get married. They work out all their challenges, all their problems, all their triggers. Like if they're really close at that level from the start of a relationship, and go, okay, well, this is my trigger from this. How do we counteract that and balance it? It's quite a powerful journey, but, not all relationships start that way. So
yeah, and I think it's hard to control triggers, because they're triggers.
They're triggers.
And they're meant to be overcome, not controlled and planned. They're meant to be felt through. So I think it's fantastic if you can do that with someone. You have a bit of a emergency plan, a backup plan. However, we're actually meant to go through these triggers, because I feel like, similar to breath work and meditation and all these tools, our relationship triggers are a way that we release toxic negative emotions that have been there from childhood. And it's actually a very healthy process. It only becomes unhealthy, when life becomes chaotic, right? So people want to control this process, but that is actually a healthy process. That is how we heal. It's another tool for healing through love and through our triggers.
100%. And that's a key word that I use for that experience when I'm talking, even for myself, is like, to get conscious of the unconscious.
Yes.
Because the unconscious it'll give you those triggers and the feelings, and like before you go in and grabbing a bottle or go for a run or go and distract yourself from those things. And technology is a big distractor these days. I'll quickly catch yourself, recognize what that trigger is, or recognize what your pattern is to go and release the emotion, because no one wants to feel anxious, no one wants to feel that sadness or rage or despair. So then we find ways to medicate that, whatever that is.
Yes.
So being able to utilize part of your experience as an adult, if you really want to work on a relationship and have a really good relationship, is to work through them. Be conscious of the unconscious triggers that are coming up. Once you get conscious of it, you can work with it. If you're just medicating and burying it and hiding it, that's when, down the track, it all comes out. At the wrong person, so most of the time.
And in that moment, for a lot of people, they sort of like have this moment of explosion or the breakdown, and you don't know why it's happened in that moment. It seems like nothing too bad has happened, but it's because that subconscious basement or unconscious basement becomes too full and it needs to release. So making the unconscious conscious is the most powerful tool that someone could have or to use, so that we're not being run by these programs for childhood. It's basically decoding the program and implementing a new program.
Yeah. And part of that, doing that work, and it doesn't mean you have to wait until you're perfect to go jump into a relationship, because a relationship is going to help you to grow.
Yeah.
When you're in the relationship and you get triggered, don't point the finger at them, because you always got three fingers pointing back at you. And so from my experience of working through that has been, okay, so where am I not showing up? Where am I not doing the work?
And it can be confusing because that person is the mirror. They are the mirror. The mirror doesn't, it's kind of like the opposite. So I notice this a lot in, it could be a man who is very aggressive on the outside, right? And we always see this as maybe the woman is the victim. Maybe he's abusive or he comes across as aggressive. However, what you often find is that woman has suppressed a lot of her aggression, right? So he is displaying what she is suppressing. And I think the same happens with children, right? So if we are, unconscious of anything going on within us suppressing, our children tend to showcase that to us, right? So making the unconscious conscious is the most powerful thing. So my final question to you is, what are you excited about right now? What is raising your vibration? What's making you look forward to the future, but also enjoy the present moment?
This conversation, for one, because it's showcasing, but also helping me to recognize the work that I've been doing for myself, and with the breath work, because I'm doing it daily. When things come up, I don't always catch them.
Yeah.
That's life. Life is busy, or you've got things going on. But what excites me is that I'm feeling the shift in my own world, and then seeing the unfolding of that into my life, which has guided me into, and by doing the breath work has guided me into listening to my intuition. So more intuitive I am now has led me on the path to do the work on myself and to share that to help others to do the work as well. And so within that space and directly with men as well, a friend of mine, Chris, and I, we're both breathwork facilitators. We go on a bushwalk, do some breath work, and then we sometimes, like the last time we did that, just all this conversation unfolded, and we're like, oh geez, that feels good. It's like we thought it was just like sitting at the beach or doing the breath work, but the conversation was like deep and real, rather than how's the weather.
Yes. So
or
high
who's the
frequency conversations, and they're so powerful, and especially for men. And I know that you're putting together a lot of groups for men to connect or share tools. And I think this is so important and so valuable, not just for men, but for the women that are around them, that live with them, for their children, right? It's going to just create a huge shift. And I really encourage any man who's listening to this, or any woman, everyone, to try breathwork, because you really feel on a deeper level how powerful you are. So thank you so much, Paul, for all the work that you're doing, and also just for your good energy as well.
Thanks for your time. Thanks for having me. It's been awesome.